why am I feeling so good? So, my name is Winifred Mena Ajakwavi. I'm the producer of 4444. I've been called a career disruptor. Now, reason being that I disrupted myself 360 degrees and switched my career from what I had always done to film making. And we created that beautiful story 4444. Thank you for all the love, for all the likes. We appreciate it. I've been planning on making this video. I think that I've passed the message in subtle ways in the engagements that I've had with the people who slide into my DM in conversations, but I promised myself that I was going to make a video and just generally document what gave me the strength, the encouragement, the wings to think that I could fly. Why am I doing this? My objective is really to inspire someone. The truth is that a lot of people have a lot of dreams, have a lot of plans and ambitions, and for some reason we're just standing at the periphery of our lives, ready to jump, waiting to jump, but not just quite taking that leap of faith, that leap to jump in. The world really needs more doers. What's stopping you? What are we afraid of? So I've done it. Hundreds of people have done it. And you can, So I'm hoping that this will inspire someone who has a dream, who has a vision to start. I'm hoping that more people who have done even bigger things, more people who are going to do even bigger things will share their story and be real about it. The good and the not so good, the facts, what pushed you, what encouraged you, just so that people can learn, so that we can ignite, right? So please, if you take nothing, I'm not making any formal video and all that. I'm just going to be relaxed. I'm not stressing myself over this. Just going to relax and share and try and bring out the notes and the nuggets as I go along. I have a coaching program for this. If you'd like to slide into my DM, we can talk about that. But this is just easy peasy, bite-sized information someone can just pick on the go and listen to, right? So my language, first of all, I like to connect with people when I deal with people. So I'm not a very formal person. Doesn't mean that I don't know about boundaries or maintain boundaries, but I just like to be relaxed, and I like people to be relaxed. So my language is going to be very simple, very formal, very Nigerian, because I'm talking well, not from experience, but I'm trying to make sure that anybody who plays this can grasp the essence of what I'm saying. That's really what. So I'm just going to be myself and make this as easy to grasp as possible for any and everybody. So what do I want to do? I want to share the story of the making of 4444. It's my production that is streaming on Amazon Prime. It's a story that talks about, can I explain it? In simple terms, how families that have loved ones living with mental health challenges really cope. It's a love story, but it also brings out everything around mental health in our society, how people react to it, how it's a hush-hush, nobody wants to be associated with it and all that. Meanwhile, it's just a diagnosis like any other. So it's a beautiful love story, but we told that story for a lot of reasons. Now, beyond the story, what's important is how I got to be the one telling that story, switching from a corporate career to behind the cameras, to in front of the cameras, and making a success of it and still going. Before I jump into the story, I want you to ask yourself, is there something that I've been nursing in my heart that I would really love to do? If money wasn't an issue, what would I be doing? Are there secret dreams that I have? Oh my God, I see myself in this role. I see myself doing this. List those things. The truth is that you can have 1, 2, 3, 5 things. Leave it at 5. I don't want you getting too confused. If you can, narrow down to your top 3 things, areas of interest. The truth is that one of the items there is what you would love to do, what you would like to be doing. Now get that, note that as we start, so that what you do for me is when I'm telling my story, how I started, the fears that I had, you can take it back to your own scenario. I want to be a singer. I would like to be a preacher. I would like to counsel the youth. I would like to be an educator. I want to work in a bank. I want to be working in an FMCG sector, whatever it is, so that when I'm talking about the steps that I took, you can bring it home to your own area. I want to just start doing hair, selling hair, fly to China, Vietnam, wherever it is, and get all the hair, make, whatever it is. I want to be a celebrity stylist, so that when I talk about my fears, you think, okay, what are my fears in this area? So that you make it relatable for you. Okay, come with me. I have meetings today, so I'm going to start here, but when I need to go for my meetings, I'm going to go for my meetings and carry you with me. In between that meeting or those meetings, I would record this video, but I'm determined to tell the story today and put it all together in one place. So when you click on the link in my bio, when you get onto this video, you can have all the information that you need. So this is me waiting for a meeting. Should I reveal who's keeping me waiting? I have to wait for an hour and a half for this meeting. But it's giving me an excuse to have breakfast. And I'm pretending to be eating healthy by ordering wheat bread sandwiches. Even though in my heart I'd rather just have white bread. I know that, what's that thing if it's not Panadol? It'll be the same thing as Panadol. Okay, I'll have breakfast and wait because the meeting is important. This lady promised me the coffee. I'm not able to. Guys, I'm coming. Make up my mind. Let me have my wheat club sandwich first and then I'll decide. Thank you. What do you recommend?
But I prefer cappuccino. Cappuccino is fine.
But I don't want all that cream and everything.
You want the cream?
Yes.
Okay, do you want the cream by the side?
Exactly, so I can put myself. But after the bread comes, the sandwich comes, yes. Okay, so the choice is cappuccino. It's interesting, I'm sitting here and I'm just observing people, right? Each having their own program, their own itinerary, just going about their day. But anyway, let me talk about the power of following what you want, the power of the life that I'm living now. I made that change. I completely disrupted my career after 20 years of doing HR, being a HR manager in top organizations. I had an eye for the entertainment industry. You know how I know? I've been coaching a lot of people asking me, how did you make that switch? There's really no magic to it. When you're ready, your heart will know. When your desire for what you want overcomes your fear and all the hesitations and all the no's you've been giving yourself, you will just find yourself moving. And that was what happened. So I'm speaking to you that just keep incubating what you want in your heart, mulling over it, thinking of what could be, the possibilities that could be when you start living the life that you want, when you start doing what you want, when you start working in the direction that you want, and you're imagining how it will play out. Now my work is flexible. I don't have to get up and sit at some desk 9 to 5. That was one aspect of my job I really did not enjoy. Long meetings with everybody trying to outsmart each other or trying to look good. I love the freedom and the liberty, the creativity that my new work allows me. There's a lot of distraction around my environment, including music from the bar, so I'm hoping that this volume is good enough for you. I love the freedom and the liberty that I feel from my current work, the creativity that it allows me. Okay, I have a call coming in. I'm gonna take that call and be back. I'm worried that this man is gonna bring my breakfast in between. But I'm determined to get this video done. Okay, so how do you know? How do you pick up the courage to go after what you want? Honestly, if you don't, you just have to. If you don't, you're always going to be in the same position or doing the thing. If you don't make that change, you're always going to be in the same position. No matter how many sessions you go for, how many coaching lessons you take, you just have to take the step. Nobody's going to do it for you. And someday at the risk of failing, but also at the risk of succeeding. I'm going to just share and then ask the questions, pointers, respond to them as I go along and bring out the lessons, right? So I've said that first of all, you have to get to a point where your desire becomes stronger than your fear. So I want to do this, I want to do this, and I'm not scared. I'm willing to do it at the risk of success or at the risk of failing. So when you get to that point, and I'll flip it back to me, when I got to that point, I became thoroughly dissatisfied with what I was doing. Mind you, I had a fantastic job, but that was not the problem. There was just no fulfillment coming from that anymore. So I wanted to do what was going to make me really fulfilled. And so I started researching, reading up about people in the industry that I was looking at. And I also started thinking about successful people. I'm not a bookworm, I'm not an afico. I can say that I am a lawyer by training, but I really don't love to read. I've found more exciting ways of consuming information, and I'll tell you about that later, that I think is very smart. One of those ways is engagement. I throw a lot of small gatherings, parties, events, but the purpose for me is always connection and learning. Sometimes I use discussion table cards for discussions and conversations. Sometimes I have questions I would raise and I want people to answer. And I find that an exciting way of bonding and getting information. But anyway, that's story for another day. So I started asking around, what do successful people do? And all that. And I made a list, things like getting a mentor, things like learning about what you want to go into, and then I thought about change. I thought about change. When you want to make a change, what do you do? There are different change methodologies. Feel free to pick the one that works for you. I picked the Curtis change model because that's what I'm familiar with from my days of working. So I picked that change model. What do you do? Create a sense of urgency, build a coalition. It's got 8 steps, and I celebrate your little wins and all of that because I realized I was going to make a change. I also studied about branding. I was going to completely rebrand from being a corporate executive to being a filmmaker. I needed to be accepted. I needed to be seen in that light as being able to deliver, just little things I noticed. So I kind of had like a roadmap. When I say a roadmap, it's not like I prepared some fine document with steps and all that. No, I had a plan in my head. I had some of it written down, on my notes. And then I started working towards it. So I think first of all, I got ready internally, mentally, prepared myself, my head, my brain. How was it going to affect me? I didn't have all the answers, but I'm one that believes strongly that you find the way as you go along. So breakfast is here. I took a quick nibble to keep me going. So bear with me. I'm going to post a picture. Boring with bread, but I'm going to pretend to be healthy today, like I said, and just eat. Respect myself and eat with bread. So, I spoke about the change methodology, and I talked about putting it down, right? I had it written down. It's not like it was necessarily a fine document. So, all I'm trying to say is you have to make this easy for yourself. Fun, simple, and enjoyable so that you can enjoy the ride. Otherwise, it becomes like a chore. So, the very first step I took actually was after I did all that finding out and background fact checking. I asked myself, who did I admire in the industry? Who did I want to sort of learn from? I identified someone, and then I knew them. They were kind of in my circle, but I couldn't boast of being really very friendly or having full access, like I could just walk in. So I didn't lie to myself. I knew that I had to be introduced for what I wanted to do seriously, to make sure that it was business and not just whatever, famson, flimsy, somebody just wanting to say hello. I wanted to have real time. And so I got someone who had a closer relationship to make the introduction and state clearly what I wanted. I wanted to be mentored. Now, mind you, I was a top executive coming from my own field, but I knew I was going into something new, and I was not ashamed to learn. or to seek help. It didn't diminish my confidence. It didn't take away from who I am. I just knew that I needed to get on the right pedestal. So I was very humble about learning, but I was also very proud in myself. So I proud in myself and proud of myself. So I didn't feel any less by asking for help. And so I got a meeting, and I went for the meeting. And I'm still trying to decide. Perhaps at the end I'm going to mention, but I want us to listen without being biased. So I got a meeting, and I went to the person's office, and we had a conversation, and I said, look, I wanted to leave my career and go into filmmaking. The stakes are really high. I had a great job, and so I needed to get it right, because I was thinking, sorry, life happens, because I was thinking a lot. I've done something to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. And so that was it. I was lucky that I came at a time when there was a project about to start, so I got a chance to jump right in. And so I was involved from the think tanks, I was very lucky that this person was quite generous to let me in a lot of their planning and their work without worrying about anything leaking out. I think I just had favor. God gave me favor. I think I articulated what I was looking for clearly. It's very important that you do that. Don't come across as brazen, too forward, being in somebody's space. Just do your best to sell yourself the best way that you can. And so I got involved in my first film project. So not just that I got involved with the planning and all that, I got a chance to play a little role, because in our conversation it was clear to me that I needed to understand the camera. I needed to be comfortable both in front of the cameras and behind the camera. So I got a chance to, and honestly, from that day I was sold. Now I'm going to tell you why. It was very stressful, and I've come to find out that filmmaking is a lot of stress. But when you love something, it's not stress for you. We waited hours to go on set. We waited hours, things. There were delays here and there, but I was, I left my job. I left the office and I sat there. I waited all that time in the rain, in the sun. I wanted to see, I wanted to soak it. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be behind. I wanted to be everywhere. I wanted to get all the information in one day. And after that, when that day eventually ended about 1 a.m., from about 10 a.m. in the morning, ended about 1 a.m., But as I walked home that day, my life changed. I knew that I was never going back to a 9 to 5. I knew that it wasn't for me anymore. I knew that was the life I wanted. I knew that was what I wanted to be doing. So I left sad and happy. Happy because I had found what I wanted to do. Sad because I became completely dissatisfied with what I was doing. And then I was scared by the enormity of what I had to face. Bear with me. I'm starving and I'm watching this nice warm bowl of fries and my club sandwich. I'm saying, am I going to wait to finish the video when it's cold? Bear with me. I'm starving and I'm watching this nice warm bowl of fries and my club sandwich. I'm saying, am I going to wait to finish the video when it's cold? I could never have afforded responsibility when I had my regular 9 to 5. But it's really different strokes for different folks. Because I have a friend whose dream is to sit on boards, with all the meetings and deliberations and all that. And she can't imagine what to do with this flexibility. Having a meeting in a bar, or a hotel or a location because you're checking out a site for a movie. She can't just do it. So really, different folks, strokes for different folks. So just do you. Be sure of what you want. For me, I love. There are days that I pick my favorite sport and I sit there and read scripts. For example, like today, part of my work is after I'm done with my meeting, I'm going to be reading a couple of scripts. I'm looking for real African stories that reflect who we are, our culture. So I've got a lot of scripts and I'm going to be reviewing them. So guys, I told you that I'm making this video where I have my meeting, which is a public space, and I'm having my breakfast while I'm doing that. And I think I started by telling how I've been observing my environment, observing people going about their daily lives and trying to read body language and thoughts and imagining what the people are facing and going through. A couple of people having meetings around me. But anyway, so today, not today, because I'm doing this here, I'm also running into a lot of people, interesting distractions. I run into an old friend I hadn't seen in at least 18 years. In fact, I'm going to insert the picture that we took right here. It's interesting what goes. So I was saying that I love the creativity and the liberty and the freedom with which I do my work. But anyway, back to what I was saying. That night that the filming ended at about 1 a.m. changed my life. As I walked away that day, I knew that I was going to do everything it took, whatever it was going to take me. I was ready and determined to make a career change, and so that started the journey. So I was ready internally, and from then on, I mentally disengaged from my past life, and I began actively seeking how to get into the new life. So I stayed close to the owner of that project, worked with them throughout the end of that project. I didn't ask for anything. I had zero my expectation was the opportunity to be a part of it. My expectation, my reward was the learning opportunity, the networking opportunity, because while I was there, I not only did the work, I tried to network. I learned. I know that I wasn't clear on what to learn first or how to start, but what I did, applying my HR knowledge, I was just whatever I felt was important, I tried to find out. So I tried to find out on that the hierarchy, the value chain for filmmaking, the value chain for filmmaking. Hey guys, oh my gosh! So this is really interesting. So I'm here, still making this video, and I noticed someone really staring at me, and I was beginning to think it was rude actually. And then I should have captured that part actually, because she walked up to me asking if I was my sister and all that. So my siblings and I look a lot alike. Look a lot alike. I get that a lot all the time when I go and people see me and they think I'm one of my siblings and vice versa. Anyway, so that's that. So I studied the value chain for the business. I'm gonna post a picture of my sister actually, the one she thought was me or whatever, for you guys to see. So I learned the value chain, what's important, who is important in that chain, and all that. In addition to just having fun on set, learning the camera parts. Remember, I was completely green. All my life I had done processes and strategy sessions, performance management, recruitment, and all that. This wearing suits and sitting in corporate meetings, and now this was now film, birthing something from nothing, creating, putting all the pieces together, managing people, managing resources, managing budgets, the vendor, the value chain was so long, the engagement level. In my 9 to 5 life, I had worked in my office, engaging with employees, management staff, and then a limited number of vendors. There was always people wanting your service. Now, I realize that in this one, I'm dealing with all sorts, public sector, private sector, and I'll get to that. So anyway, I left from that meeting having learned the value chain. I did the entire process and then it was done. It took maybe all of 2 months, 3 months. I watched the promotion for the film. It came out in the cinemas. I watched the records, the returns, Because at the end of the day, money is important, right? And which is very important because people always think, oh, my passion may not be able to pay my bills. Wrong. I actually think you need to be passionate about something to be able to stick it out to the end, to the point where it begins to yield returns. Anyway, so I watched that up to the cinemas and all that, and after that process, I was back to work, back to my old life. The question was then, how do you start? I've learned, I've internalized what I needed to do. I've been a part of one project. I've got all the lessons. I had my notes. I've gone home with my notes. What do you now do? I remember there was a story that one of my facilitators told. I used to be a trainer in my past life, one of my jobs, and also I'd done a lot of certifications and training. And I remember one message that really left a huge impact on me, and I use it today for a lot of trainings and all when I'm coaching even my children. So the guy told us a story about a very wise old man who lived up on a hill somewhere, was said to be very wise, and so someday, and so people would always go to him for consultations and all that in the community where he lived. And so these two young teenage boys decided to pull a fast one on him, and they both said, look, they were going to get a bird and put it in their hands and put it behind their back, and then go up to the wise old man and tell him, since you know everything, tell us if the bird in our hand is alive or dead. So the plan was, if he said the bird was dead, they would quickly, suffocate it behind their back and then bring it out. The man was old, blind anyway, and quite old and frail, and wouldn't really be. So they knew they would have a few seconds to be able to suffocate the bird before they bring it out and show the man. Yeah, he wasn't blind, just quite frail, and show the man. But if he said, that the bird was dead already, then they'll bring it out and let it fly so that he will see. Either way, they were determined to prove him wrong. And so they went to the man and asked him, so we have a bird in our hand, so you tell us if the bird is dead or alive. And the old man thought, and then looked at them and then said, you know what, the bird is in your hands, and you determine whether it will live or it will die. You determine whether it's alive or dead. You will do with it what you will, regardless of what I say, because it's in your hands. What are you going to do with it? And the guys looked at each other. They brought out the bird and they let it fly, and they left defeated because the man had sort of caught them in their own. But anyway, what is the moral of that story? It's in your hands. Whatever it says is in your hands. You determine what you do with it. Whether you let it live, you let it fly, whether you let the fear that you have suffocate you, whether you let the boldness and the excitement that you have free you and allow you to fly. So I never forget that lesson. And after that day, I went back to my office and I just went back to my work. Life continued as normal. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into 1 year. Almost turning into 2 years, And each time I kept going around looking for mentors to get talking to other people. I got another senior colleague in the industry who actually got me a script and said, you know what, Winnie, this is how to start. Here's the story. Get ready, you will produce it, and I'm just going to guide you. I got the story. That story started May 4. I just didn't know. I was overwhelmed, not knowing how to start. And you can experience that when you decided you want to start something. You have you've gathered all the information you need. But you're just not sure how to take that first step. Guys, the simple answer is you just start. You just wake up one day and start. There's no other way to do it. Start knowing that you may fail. I made a point earlier on where I said you see what they call my kids? No, I'm always saying I don't suffer paralysis by analysis. Take the first step. Once I have an idea of where I want to get to, what I want to do, I can imagine how it's going to go. I have a couple of the resources or what I need. I move. I don't wait. Even the Bible says, he who regards the sun may not sow. I don't wait for everything to be perfect. It doesn't mean I take unguarded risks. It doesn't mean you take stupid risks, but I'm a risk taker. You have to be just once you have sufficient information and all that, let's just move. We'll find out. If it's doable, we will do it. If it's not doable, we'll have learned one more way not to do this thing, and we move back. So I didn't wait. I just needed the force, the initial inertia to start. That was all I needed. And anyway, so I started panicking after I'd done coaching, talking to people and all that, and I still wasn't moving. I went back to my first coaching, and she said to me, you're ready. you're ready, Winifred, just do it and all that. And I took on that challenge. Anyway, so I left, and then my own personal way of doing things is prayer. So the choice is yours. This is not the choice is yours. Prayed about it, felt I was being moved in a particular direction, and so I got a story, and then I just started by checking the story, asking people, will this work in the industry? Will this have commercial value and all that? And when I got a yes, I decided to start writing the story. I got someone to write it. Again, the lesson is in what you want to do. You're going to have to work with people. You don't have all the skills. You're the owner of the vision. You know where you're driving to. So learn to employ the people and the skills that will work with you along the way. You must bring in people, right? And so I did that. I got someone to write the script. And now, how do you find somebody? Whatever it is in your own industry that you need to do, you have to ask people who have done it. How is this done? Do you have any recommendations? And then you talk and narrow down to the person that works for you. That was what I did for my case. I was looking for a script writer. So what I did was ask, who writes your scripts? Who are the good script writers? Who can I afford within my budget and all that? I spoke to a couple of people, got some names, interviewed, and I found one that we had chemistry in every way, financially aligned. Financial chemistry was good because what they were asking for was what I could pay and all of that. And then I said, got commissioned, and so they wrote the story. That took a long time, almost 9 months. You have to be patient, you have to give it time. There's some that say still waters run deep, right? Foundation has to be strong. So besides, apart from, you know what, let me just be honest, right? And we'll take a break after this and I'll continue, but let me just be honest. First of all, I was scared, so I was delaying the evil day. That was part of why I was taking my time. And then secondly, I really did want a good job, but honestly, on a scale, if I put the two side by side, I think probably the fear of starting was more of what kept me than the fact that I was really bent on doing a good job and reviewing the script. I was trying to buy time. So it gave me something to do. I could tell people that, I was finally into filmmaking. I felt like I was busy. I felt like I was finally inching my way. But I knew that I was not even scratching the surface. But that was what I was doing at the time. So it gave me something to do while I was still working on my confidence. I think in a short form, we want to talk about it. I started safe. I started small, with the smaller things so that I could take it in my stride. I started at every point I was operating on a safe level. So when I spent like 1 year doing the script and we were done, by then I had grown my network. Somebody's trying to distract me. I'm not going to give it to them. I had grown my network. I had become a little bit more confident in my engagement. I was learning to ask the right questions in some circles, and all of that. So back soon. I think I would stick a nibble at my sandwich. So someone said I'm not looking at you guys and I'm talking to you. So for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to be staring straight at you. So I'm really curious to know. Let me know in the comments if this is useful. Why am I doing this? It's really not it's been too long coming. I've had people that I coach privately and all that, people that I share with, walking this journey, and the request has been there. And honestly, it's a career testimony. It's a way of encouraging somebody who's waiting to start something to tell you to start, that anybody can do it. There's a process to it. Like a friend of mine will say, there's a method to the madness. I completely disrupted my career, but there was a process to that disruption. So it's not about just scattering what exists and is working. It's about discovering new grounds, So the whole purpose of this is to encourage someone, because you can do it, and to say that if you need to have deeper conversations, you can reach out to me, slide into my DM, send me a message, and I'll be happy to hold your hand the way someone held my hand, to walk this journey. So anyway, 1 year later or more, I was ready after dilly-dallying with the story and all of that. And so what did I do next? I found somebody again, like I said, at every point you're going to keep asking. So I found someone who was skilled in the industry to get a guide, on how to recruit the people how do you execute? So now I have a script on my hands. How do I execute? In your case, you have a project, you have a job, you wanted to be an estate developer, you've got the land. What do you do? How do you get investors? How do you build? How do you get design? When you're done, how do you market it to ensure profitability and all that? Think whatever your industry is, you can apply it. So I was now like, okay, so I've got a story. That's the foundation. How do I start? How do I execute? What am I going to do with the story? I went through that again, and somebody said, oh, this is what you do. Let me make the first call. Let's get you, in the chain. You have like the CEO, the director, and then the rest becomes easier. So we did that. We sat together. He made the phone call, spoke to the director. Would you be happy to direct this film? Eventually we got a yes. And then I started working with the director, breaking it down into little steps. Who are all the people that we need? What is the budget that we need? So every aspect. Now I study people, that doesn't have to be the case for you. Everybody's gifted differently, and also because I work in HR, so it was very easy. But really, I really do recommend you, whatever you're doing, you need to quickly study your environment and find who you can trust, who you can work with. You get a new job, you resume in a new organization, you study your landscape real quickly, know where the landmines are, know the people you can work with, So I did that, and from studying the team that I had put together, it was easy to know the strengths and weaknesses and who I could work with. So quickly know who you can trust. Even if it's in a work environment, you need to study your environment real quick and know who you can latch on, know the different, your team strengths and weaknesses, and then you'll know where to put what weight on. So I quickly identified somebody, and not in a negative way, milking everything that I could, but I worked closely with that person to come up with the strategy, and that determined the course of everything else. I wanted to, coming in at, having planning to leave from a senior position to start something new. I didn't think it was going to be my interest to start at a level that would be less than that, at the very least at par with where I was coming from. So even though it was in a new industry, I was not going to climb the ladder again. I didn't have the patience, certainly didn't have the time. I didn't even think I came in early enough, so I wasn't going to spend years climbing any ladder. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You have to watch your own environment and know what works for you. But I was determined to play big from day one. I have a friend who also says go big or go home. So I wasn't just going to start scratching around the surface. I asked, what is the top? What do I need to do to be able to play at this level? What would it take? And when I found it, I worked towards that. It wasn't easy. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, you had the resources, you had this. I had less than 10% of what I needed when I started. And that's to encourage someone that it's really not money. A lot of times when there's a will, there's a way. I learned that with this thing. Where there's a will, you will find a way. So I had less than 10%. Let me make it for purpose of, practicality. Let's say that I needed 10 million. I had less than 1 million. I probably had like 300,000 or 400,000, even less than half of, even less than 5%. And I was scared throughout. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I was just taking one step at a time. When they really say break down your goals into little steps, there's wisdom in that, there's value, because you're taking little steps that are not so risky, keeps you going, gives you hope that you're doing something, and all that. Meanwhile, you're not really doing much, just baby steps. So it keeps you busy. People see that, because sometimes there's a need to satisfy, so nobody stresses you. What are they thinking? What are they saying? You just want to get people off your back. Oh, I'm in a meeting. Maybe it's just a short conversation. Oh, I'm in a meeting. and all that. So, oh, I'm working on a film project. Maybe you're just starting at the script level, so you're taking it in bite size. So I was doing, all that. I didn't have all what I needed, but I started, and I was just going on, taking it step by step. I remember calling a meeting. We needed a boardroom. We needed people to cater for the meeting and all that. I was inviting all the big shots I could when they were telling me the skills that I needed to hire and their going rates, the resources, the talent in the industry. Never once did I show fear. Did I show fear or vulnerability in those meetings? But I'll leave those meetings going back to my inner circle. Who is your inner circle? Find your inner circle, your tribe, because you will need them to cry on their shoulders. So I'll go back to my husband and be like, oh my God, honey, we're going to need X amount, maybe 5M, 3M to pay this person by Monday. I don't have it. What am I going to do? And all that. But you see me at the meeting, I'm saying, what's it going to take? What is the requirement? Send me the invoice. I had no clue where it was going to come from. Courage. I think that when you're working on your passion, on what you're doing, you're determined, so you're not even seeing anything else. The courage just comes from somewhere. You're not seeing anything else. So I was just going on, taking all those steps. And somehow I was able to meet all that. Now, please hear me out. I don't want to miscommunicate and make you think that you can irresponsibly start off something without knowing how or where, or even think, if any possibility at all of raising it. All this time, I was having conversations with people who may be willing to invest in me, sponsor my project. I had an idea of where some of the resources would come from. I had an idea of where I was hoping the extra would come from, and all of that. So maybe realistically, I could guarantee where perhaps 50% would come from. The other 50 I didn't know. And I had no solution. But I was just determined that somehow I will find a way, that I just needed to start. And so after a series of meetings, and remember that I was a learner, but that's another thing, sometimes they say fake it till you feel it. It's all within context. There are times that you really have to know. There are times you may be able to get away with that. So as much as I didn't have all the knowledge, I was reading ferociously. I was asking questions ferociously. I was having a lot of meetings. I hate reading. So when I say reading, don't think books. Probably go to people's Instagram pages and read comments or things, and I'll tell the rest of the story myself. So don't think I was reading any journals or manuals. Read comments, read the gossip magazines, whatever fits your own industry. Read the magazines, the write-up in the industry. I could get the gossip. Those are very easy to consume information, and then of course you have to fact check, otherwise you pick up garbage information that you don't need. So I was doing all of that, and so every day that I had a meeting, obviously you would have an agenda, so I would prep for that particular day's meeting. Whatever the topic was going to be budgeting. I would ask questions and learn about budgeting. I was taking the learning in bite size so that it wasn't too much for me. And so I would come to that meeting sounding knowledgeable and be able to ask the right questions, because I had limited my learning to what I needed for the day. And so that was how I winged my way through, because I was a newbie. What are you starting? You have to have the information. You're the one driving the vision. It's very important that you're not completely ignorant. It's very important that you're able to communicate confidence to the people who are walking the walk with you, and you just have to build yourself up. So we did all that. I had countless meetings, prepping. What I took seriously was hiring the right skills, especially because it was going to be my first solo project. I didn't compromise on talent. A lot of times, even working in HR, I've seen organizations compromise on talent. Sometimes you can't afford the talent that you really want, or you should get. Oh, we can't afford to bring an expatriate. Let's get local hands and train. I didn't have the courage to compromise, because I didn't want several novices on the project, so I was determined to get the best set of hands that I could get, around me to ensure the integrity of my project. So that was what I did, sort of riding on the shoulders of giants who had gone ahead of me. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. It's got to be the smart thing to do, the smart way to rise. So that's what I did. I got really surrounded myself with good people, smart people, the right talents who know what to do. And together we created our first magic, what eventually came to be known as 4444, 4th of April 1944. We went on to win awards for that story. You know that drug abuse victims suffer withdrawal symptoms, right? So apparently, that's not only where it happens. When I made the change, I think I suffered some sort of withdrawal symptoms from change of career. I battled with that for quite a while, and I'm going to tell you. So leaving certainty for uncertainty already created its own complications. And then in my certain grounds, right, I was very involved, very embedded. I was a member of several platforms and several communities, had speaking engagements frequently, some level of subject matter expert. And so when I made the change, I struggled with those platforms that I belonged to. They were not the right platforms for me. First of all, I knew that I needed new platforms to be hearing what had to do or what has to do with my new industry. I needed to be fed in that way, and I was walking away from something. I didn't want that to be what I was constantly hearing, so I struggled. What was I to do with the platforms I was already involved in and established? To continue or to withdraw? Now, for you, what worked for me may not work for you. I've had this similar conversation with a friend who's changed career and said she's fine to remain on the platforms and remain actively involved and straddle both. After I disrupted myself, I needed to disconnect. I needed a clean break and all that. I struggled. It took a year, but I realized eventually that I needed to make a break and begin to focus more on feeding myself new information on what I require for my next cycle, my new journey. Now that came with a lot of complications, or a lot of just different things, reactions and all that. Immediately my circle of influence shrunk in that area. I realized I was being less involved in that area. The invitations I got for speaking engagements and things like that, participations in projects in that circle reduced. So I had to deal with the psychological. There were times it felt like exclusion. There were times I was thankful for that exclusion because it had become a distraction to me. But I do not want you to trivialize it and think that it happens to the best of us. You must have that period of sitting back and relooking everything and deciding and understanding how it's impacted, affected, changed you, and then deciding how you would cope. I had friends in one circle that suddenly didn't think I could offer what they wanted, so I gradually became less of the go-to person for certain things in that field, and yet in the new field I hadn't become the go-to person. So I did have that moment. So I was building in one field and detaching from another field. So at that point I wasn't really anywhere or strong anywhere. Eventually I recognized it for what it was, and so I braced up and I knew that it was a phase that I just needed to ride through while still keeping my eyes on the ball. I'm painting this picture for you because when you make that change, there are times you would feel, have I done the right thing? Have I made a mistake? I'm losing out here. I'm not there yet. You're building. Those are the moments that you're paddling hard under the water. But on the surface, a lot is going on. Now, how you appear on the surface is very important because you're wooing your new life with confidence. You must be communicating confidence, and it can do vibe, capability, because that's how you attract the opportunities in your new space. That's how people want to collaborate with you. And then you're disengaging from the other one sufficiently so that people stop associating you with that, because you want them to know I'm no longer A, I am B, so they can start bringing the B opportunities to me. But you also want to do it smartly so that until those opportunities start coming, you're not missing out completely on the A opportunities. You're not offending your community from the A. So it's a thin rope that you walk delicately. I'm just painting the picture. There are lots of tips. I had lots of notes that I wrote down for navigating this period, and I'm quite happy to share you. Slide into my DM, your comment section, just let me know. I built a lot of resources, but all I can say is that at this point, when you're paddling, ensure you're on the surface that you're calm and sitting pretty and very calm. All the turmoil should be on the inside. You must be able to exude the confidence that is required to attract your next level. So I try to use different analogies because not everybody is going to go into filmmaking. So every scenario will be different. So you've got a shop, you finally got a shop, you've set up, you've stocked it, you've advertised what you do. So it's like you've got a springboard, you've got your whole get up set up. What next? How do you get the customers? How do you invite the business in? How do you let people know that you're here, that you have a great product? So I'm gonna bring it to mine, which is filmmaking. I've done all the agonizing and thinking and planning and all that, and finally completed. We had gone on set. Set was very challenging, by the way, because I chose to tell a story that had me recreating an environment that no longer exists. So that is story for another day. But now we're done and I have a product, I have my film. That is when you realize that to be the CEO, to be in the driver's seat, is not a piece of cake, because everybody is relying on you, the business is relying on you, the product is relying on you to get to the consumer, to get to the end of the road, the end user. What do you do? This is a new venture for you. You're just starting out. So how do you get it out in the market? How do you attract the attention that you want, the business that you want? Again, it's just by asking, consulting. So I did this at the start. I had an idea of how I was going to get it to distribution. Remember that I said I found out what was required to make it very marketable, and I tried to work to that answer. So I already had an idea, but now you have a finished product. So now you're asking with more certainty, who should I be talking to? You're no longer speculating. So it was from asking, oh, I have this product. I had meetings upon meetings. People gave me all sorts of referrals. Every lead was important. When you're starting out, you really don't know which lead is going to materialize. You're probably not able to, what do I say? I was careful not to judge a book by its cover, so I followed reasonably most leads that I got. Reasonably. I explored, I gave each one a chance to see, because I just didn't want to miss anything. So I did all that, finding out how is it done, what do you need to do, and all that. So after finding out, and then I entered into conversations. I had to make myself the obvious choice. I had to make myself an attractive bride. I had to make people want to deal with me. So I had to, the way that I presented myself, the product that I had, I made sure it met the requirements. My negotiation and bargaining and everything put together, I had to learn a lot of patience, because I had my eyes on the ball. Success. This product had to get to the end user. It had to get to a distribution platform. And so I managed my expectations, and oh my God, I remember those months, a lot of patience. A number of my friends would ask any word, any feedback. After eventually we put it in, we had to wait, and then we did a back and forth. We got a distributor. We got a platform that was going to accept the work. We were now waiting for the final documents. That tested my patience. That tested my patience. But there were times I had to push. There were times I was upset and mad and had to fight. There were times I had to scale back, take a back seat. There were times I just had to understand the process. Oh God, I was juggling different emotions. But that period taught me resilience. I remember somebody who managed the brand for me at that time. I had called to say, okay, so what's going on? We're done with this, and the feedback I got was, you got to learn how to breathe. Just sit back and breathe. Winifred, just sit. There's nothing to do at this stage. You're done. It's a waiting period. Just wait for it, or start other projects, start other things. So in that time, why am I saying this? Because when you make a change or you start something new, you're still getting used to the cycle. So there may be down times and high times and off times, like everything else in life, and you have to know how to cope, because those are the moments that you start doubting yourself. Those are the moments that you begin to hear voices that are telling you, sweetie, you better turn back, take another way and all of that. And if you're not grounded, if you're not careful, you give it to your fears, to your doubts. So you have to know how to manage those seasons. And so I kept my mind busy, because I kept asking myself, Winifred, are you sure? And each time the answer was yes, yes, and yes again. So I said, okay, so this is what the period is. I'm going to just keep busy with other things. And so, while you're going through this, the people you have left behind in whatever career you're disrupting, whatever you're leaving behind to forge a new life, people are moving, nobody's waiting. So you're constantly a lot glancing back and looking and turning into salt, because you see that people are making progress, and then you begin to second guess yourself. You begin to doubt. The fears almost take hold of you. So you have to know how to navigate that period. So it did happen, but I just stayed, I was like, okay, I've set my hands to the plow. I'm not going back. I've, set my foot, taken the first step. I'm not going back. So I just kept pep talking to myself, encouraging, found other little things to do, still networking in the industry, studying. I was reading a lot of scripts, just looking at scripts, looking at schools to get education. I just kept myself busy, and that helped to go through that period. Now I'm thankful for my journey. I'm not the woman that you knew in 2021. I'm not the same person. I've definitely picked up a lot of things. So now I can say that I'm an entrepreneur. I remember one day I had this conversation. I was at a forum and they had talked about, and I said, talked about entrepreneurship. But then, as of this time, I was still working, and I was if you know me, I'm a very serious-minded person. When I'm on a project, I don't joke with it. My husband says that whenever I'm working on something, he knows he's going to suffer in the rest of the house, because until that thing is done, I am like a bulldog. When I latch onto something, I don't let go until it's done. So I was working, fully involved in my career. And when they asked about entrepreneurship, I said no, that I'm a full career person. Now, there are two reasons I gave that answer. Because at that time, that was what I was doing, and I couldn't comprehend anything else. And then secondly, because what I'm doing now is my passion. So I don't see it like work. So I really don't see, as far as I'm concerned, I'm having the time of my life, creating value, churning out value, and getting rewarded for it. So perhaps my answer will still be the same thing, from the angle of doing what I love, but really is entrepreneurship. That's what it is, So I can beat my chest and say that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative entrepreneur. I am doing what I love to do. I've followed my heart, followed my passion, creating value from that. And you can too.